All right, ready to dive into something fascinating. Today, we're going way back to the ancient world.
Definitely.
We're talking about the Tower of Babel story from the book of Genesis.
Oh, a classic. Love it.
But we're not just looking at the tower itself.
Right.
We're going to see what we find in those verses just after it.
Should be interesting.
So, picture this. Everyone on Earth speaks the same language, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
And they get this idea, this really bold idea, to build a giant tower.
I can see where this is going.
A tower so high it's going to reach heaven. Ambitious, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Things don't quite work out the way they planned, do they?
You could say that. It kind of backfires big time. It's this whole challenge to, like, divine authority, this blatant disregard for, the natural order of things. And as punishment, the builders, they're scattered all over the earth.
And their languages, what happens to their languages?
Wow, total confusion. They can't understand each other anymore. Can you imagine?
It's such a powerful image, this tower, this symbol of unity becoming, well, a symbol of division. And the story, it tries to explain why we have so many languages today, but how much of it is like real history and how much is symbolic storytelling?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Scholars have been debating that for centuries. We know that language evolving is way more complex than a single event, right?
Right.
But that doesn't make the story any less powerful. If anything, it just shows how much we want to know where language came from, how it connects us all.
So maybe it's not about a literal language scramble at all, but more about that human need to understand each other, to connect.
Exactly. The Tower of Babel becomes this lens to examine how we communicate, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and that relationship we have, with the divine. Wouldn't you say it serves as a sort of cautionary tale?
Absolutely. It shows what can happen when we get a little too big for our britches, right?
Yeah.
When we want power without thinking about the consequences. But it also points to something else. The incredible diversity of human expression. It's like the story itself is a contradiction.
I like that. How so?
Well, this act of dividing people by language, on the surface, it's divisive, but it leads to so much cultural richness, all these different ways of seeing the world, communicating, expressing ourselves.
You've got a point there. It's
Yeah.
ironic, isn't it?
And right after this dramatic story of, ambition and this division of humanity, the book of Genesis throws something else at us. Genealogies.
Yeah, I can see how some people might just skip over those long lists of names.
So I'll be honest, I used to think they were just like ancient record keeping.
But you'd be missing out. There's so much more than that.
Really? How so?
To the people who wrote these texts, genealogies weren't just like dry lists. They were stories themselves.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of stories?
They traced family lines, inheritance. They even had this like theological weight to them.
So it's about looking beyond the names themselves, seeing the connections they represent.
Exactly. For example, after the Tower of Babel, we dive into the descendants of Shem, one of Noah's sons.
Right, and then we get these incredible ages, Shem living for like hundreds of years after his son is born.
It's pretty mind-boggling, right?
It makes you think, how did ancient cultures view time? Longevity.
It's easy to take those ages literally. But we have to remember these texts often work on a symbolic level.
So a long lifespan wasn't necessarily about a certain number of years.
Exactly. It represented something deeper.
Like what kind of symbolism are we talking about?
Okay, imagine this. In many ancient cultures, living a long time, it wasn't just about cheating death. It was about gaining wisdom, experience, even divine favor.
Ah, I see. So these really long lifespans tell us these figures weren't just old, they were exceptional. They were blessed.
Exactly. And as we go through this genealogy, we find names like Eber. Some scholars think that's where we get the word Hebrew.
Wow. So these names are really significant. They hold clues about culture, language, all of that.
Right. Then there's Peleg. His name means division. And it's no coincidence he's born a few generations after the Tower of Babel, an event all about division.
It's like the writers of Genesis are connecting these events across generations, even in the names themselves.
Yeah, it's all connected. And then we finally get to Terah, the father of Abram, who later becomes Abraham.
Right, and he's a central figure in Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
Huge.
Even before Abraham takes center stage, the text is highlighting his lineage. It's like we're seeing the foundation of a legacy being built.
And that legacy, it's all about journeys.
Yeah.
About movement.
Yeah.
It's just like the scattering of people after the Tower of Babel. Terah, he goes on this incredible journey, leaving his home in Ur, heading towards Canaan.
So we've gone from this tower that's trying to reach the heavens to this journey across the land. What does that tell us? It's almost like we're seeing two different responses to, the human condition. On one hand, you have this urge to build upward, to make a name for yourself.
Right.
And on the other, you have this call to journey outward, to put your faith in a promise even if you can't fully see it.
That's a really interesting observation. The Tower of Babel, it's all about control.
Yeah.
Trying to impose order on the world through sheer will. But Terra's journey, that's different.
How so?
It's like a surrender to a path he doesn't fully understand, a willingness to embrace the unknown.
And so often, it's in those moments when we embrace the unknown that we discover our purpose.
So,
leaving it wasn't just about changing locations for Terra and his family. It was stepping into this destiny, a destiny that would change history.
absolutely. And speaking of destiny, there's this other part of Terra's story that I find kind of interesting.
What's that?
So he leaves right, in search of this promise.
Right.
But he doesn't actually make it to the promised land himself. He dies in Haran.
Oh, wow.
It becomes this kind of stopover on his family's journey.
So it's a reminder that sometimes our legacy isn't about reaching our own destination, but the impact we have on those who come after us.
Exactly. And Terah's legacy, it's huge. His son Abram, who becomes Abraham,
Right.
his line becomes central to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Wow.
It shows that even small choices can have a ripple effect.
It really is incredible when you think about it. We started with a tower reaching for the heavens, and we end up following a family's journey across ancient lands, finding all this meaning hidden within names, within genealogies. It's pretty amazing.
We've just scratched the surface. The Tower of Babel, with its themes of ambition, language, the scattering of people, it still resonates with us today. It makes us think about the human experience, how we communicate, and how powerful stories are, how they connect us all.
It's been an amazing deep dive. It makes me wonder about my own place in all of this. What will my story be? What will I leave behind? Something to think about, right?
Definitely. Maybe that's the point of engaging with these ancient texts.
Yeah.
They illuminate the past, but they also challenge us to live more meaningfully now.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Toby, Eleanor, and our team of researchers are working hard to produce more episodes. If you value what we're doing here, please consider subscribing and sharing the word. Additionally, our podcast, RSS, and Patreon links can be found below. Listener support is what makes our work possible. Join us next time for another deep dive. God bless.